Friends, what a joy. What a joy to be here. Pastor Amanda, thank you. Thank you. May the peace of Christ be with you all. How honored I am to be here again. As I said last time, I've been living next door to the church for the last 7.5 years, and the organ and the bells of the church got so deeply in my bones that every time I hear that sound, there's a certain sense of assurance that God is still there doing the work. I always give thanks to God for you. And now coming here with Pastor Adrian Thorne as the pastor of Riverside makes my heart sing. We studied together at Union, we conspired together at Max Cafe. I visited her church in Brooklyn and saw how beloved she was there. We were in some classes together, so I feel that this church is blessed to have Reverend Thorne here. And I'm also happy because I have my family here with me. I have my wife Katie, Libby, Sissy, and Ike. Would you please stand? It's such a joy to have you here. Thank you. I also have my parents-in-law, Bruce and Rita. Thank you for being here too. They came from Central PA. And I have the luxury of having my niece arriving from Germany last night just to see me preaching. No, not really, but Deborah, please stand up. Thank you. My heart is full. As we all know, we are living in a time of climate disasters. Just this week, scientists released this report called IPCC, saying that if we don't change our ways until 2030, temperatures will rise beyond 1.5 Celsius, and we will enter into a period of unknown consequences and unforeseen disasters. Governments must move and change now, investing billions of dollars if we are to keep ourselves safe for the future. So when I hear this news, I feel powerless. What are we regular citizens to do? Perhaps go to the streets protesting, push our local, state, and federal politicians, be attentive to whom we elect? Yes. Perhaps we must engage in cleaning our rivers, the protection of our parks, the supporting our local farmers? Yes. Perhaps we can stop buying everything we want to buy. Perhaps only 90% of our endless consumerism? Yes. Yes, there are ways to fight and engage. And I hope the new generations will be taken by the courage instead of the fear, and a sense of responsibility to protect the earth for themselves and for future generations. But in order to think about this massive thing, I want us to pay attention to something small. I want us to pay attention to the presence of trees. Yes, trees. How can our faith engage the world from the perspective of trees? In the Bible, our human history starts and ends with a tree. In Genesis chapter 2, the tree of life set limits and boundaries to our good living. All the limits we have failed to respect to this day. The Bible ends our history here on earth with a tree at the heart of the city of God, a city restored and renewed. Revelations 22 says, "Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God of the Lamb through the middle of the street of the city. On either side of the river there is a tree of life, with its 12 kinds of fruit, producing its fruit each month. And the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations." From cover to cover, the Bible carries a forest. In Ethiopia, there is a church that lives inside of a forest. It's called the church forest. The church was built surrounded by trees and lives in deep harmonies with the trees. They sustain each other. The interiors of the church were made of the trees that surround it. The colors of the church came from the trees' barks and leaves, and the sacred objects of the church are also made of the wood of the trees. The people carry a cross made of wood from the trees, and when they pray, the trees pray with them. The trees are giving witness of their relation to God. In some parts of Africa, the trees are symbols of the connection between humans and God, since the trees are grounded on earth but reaches up to the skies. So if you allow me to ask this question this morning, what is a tree for you? As our pastor, Reverend Amanda, asks us today, in what ways are people like trees? Or we could also put the other way around, are trees like people? Like the Bible? Do you carry a forest in your heart? Throughout history, we fail to pay attention to the natural world, except to describe the landscape of a secondary concern to human activity. But what if we look at history from the perspective of a tree? What would the tree tells us? And today I want to think with you about 3 events with trees as major characters: the crucifixion of Jesus, the lynching tree in the United States, and the Amazon forest. During the pandemic, a group of people from Ghost Ranch asked me to lead a spiritual practice for Lent, focusing on the Stations of the Cross. And then I thought that what if we think about the Stations of the Cross from the perspective of the cross, which was a tree? And then it's almost as if I was hit by the fact that yes, the cross was a tree once. Then I started to imagine how the Stations of the Cross could connect us with the suffering not only of Jesus, but with people in relation to trees around us and elsewhere. How could the Stations of the Cross lead us to consider trees and their need of care, love, and sustenance? The group started asking questions about the memory of the tree. Who held Jesus' body? Oh yes, it was a dead tree who held the body of God for Christmas. For Christians. Was it a cedar tree, a dogwood tree, a cypress tree? We don't know. There were other dead trees carrying robbers next to Jesus, as we know, because they're part of the story, but we know nothing about them and nothing about the trees. But why? One thing we know, it was the death of a tree that prepared the way for Jesus' death. Imagine a carpenter who knew wood so well had his body carried by a tree. The Bible says that Jesus carried his cross to Calvary, and the weight of the wood hurt him, his already massacred body. Jesus was a danger to the Roman Empire, but the tree was nobody. Nothing. The robbers next to Jesus were nobody. The trees were nobody. To this day, we still put poor people on crosses of injustices and oppression all over the world. We destroy trees the same way as if they are nothing, they are nobody, they have no life. On the days of Jesus' death, the natural world witnessed the public shame placed on 3 men. The skies got dark. The trees and the soil were tinted with human blood and sweat, hair and perhaps urine and feces. We forget that the natural world also noticed us. Later, in the meditations of the Stations of the Cross, our group read Professor James Cone, The Cross and the Lynching Tree. I hope you have a chance to read it. And in that book, Professor Cone relates the cross of Jesus with the lynching trees. Both trees are symbol of death. The tree cross of Jesus was the placeholder of power and death of the Roman Empire. The lynching tree held the power of white supremacy through racial segregation and apartheid here in the Empire of the United States. The hanging trees or hangman's trees were composed of many kinds of trees all across the United States. Oaks, ironwoods, junipers, sycamores, ponderosa trees, and other trees holding black bodies. These trees were witnessing the human cruelty upon black bodies being brutally murdered. These trees saw the sweat, fears, anger, and the last breath of precious black people. These trees carried not only their bodies, but they carried their spirits. They carried their songs. Oh, those trees, those who are still here, still sing the sad song of those whose lives were taken. Let me show you this art that a student of mine once did. A South Korean, Mi Young. She had never learned about lynching trees, and when she read about it, she didn't understand. And the reason was to relate the lynching trees with the cross of Jesus. And this is what you see. The cross at the Mount of Calvary and the southern trees were all bearing strange fruits, as Billie Holiday sang. Bodies hanging in Palestine wind and in the southern breeze. Precious bodies on precious trees, neither of them considered full beings until this day. But trees and black people teach us so much about surviving and thriving. Trees create seeds that will succeed in the soil where they are planted. Some seeds will drop, some seeds will be carried out by animals and birds, some seeds will fly nearby, and some seeds will fly away to faraway places. Since trees cannot move, they can feel and sense changes arriving way before we do, so that they can be prepared. So they spread their seeds further. They might know they won't be able to make it, but they spread their seeds as far as they can, so they continue existing in the next generations. The same way, black people also show us and knew how to survive. Out of the senseless, brutal death Black folks have embraced the cross to find meaning and healing, which teaches us a way to survive and thrive. It was the cross of Jesus that gave meaning to those on the lynching trees too. These other forms of violence didn't need to happen. They didn't carry any redemption, but they were turned into places of transformation. They were turned into places of freedom. They were turned into forms of survival. And I'll say here what I said last time when I came here. It was the life and the struggle of the black people in this country who saved the gospel for all of us. When this country had lost its soul, it was the lives of black people who again made a way out of no way and kept the spirit of life moving, the possibility of a people to continue to be alive and the gospel to continue what it is, good news. As the trees spread their seeds all across the earth, black people spread their spirit all across this nation. And it is their songs who are singing their spirit all around. As the trees carrying a healing balm in their leaves, black people carry a healing balm in their songs, their praise in their lives. Hallelujah. History shows us that the natural world and black people got along really well. Black people knew the land and the sky so well, they knew how to walk up to the north to find freedom. They told each other to follow the drinking gourd in the sky. Remember we sang, follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. The song said to move up, running near the rivers so they could drench themselves in water to erase the smell of their sweat so the dogs wouldn't catch them. That's why Harriet Tubman said, wade in the water, my friends. Wade in the water for your freedom. Wade in the water, for God's gonna trouble the water. Do you remember that? Yeah. Wade in the water. Sing with me. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Again, here we go. Wade in the water. Oh. Wade in the water, God's gonna trouble the waters. The natural world was together with them. And this week I was just reading how people, precious black people turned slaves in the Caribbean, found unique ways to find their freedom. You know what the women did? The women would draw the map of the forest in their heads, showing the places of the trees and the patterns of escapes in between the dense trees. So you would look at the hair of the women and you knew the map of freedom. It is time for us to return to the natural world to figure out our own faith and how God has something for us through the natural world. Where God lives near us, through vegetation, animals, and trees, what do you know about it? Calvary brought us salvation. The lynching trees renewed the spirit of a people and of a country. And now the Amazon forest is issuing a cry into our ears, each place marked by the presence of trees. From Calvary, passing through the United States and arriving at the Amazon forest, trees continue to hold the memory of our violence. In the Amazon now, there's been a massacre of all the trees because of our own consumerism, United States and Europe. A true genocide During the 4 years of the presidency of Brazil, Bolsonaro, more than 2 billion trees were murdered. 1 million trees per day. 15 trees murdered every second. Mahoganies, cedars are only 2 kinds among the 16,000 tree species, depending on us for their standing. Along the trees, indigenous people are being decimated. There are still few forests standing in the world, and yet our lives depend fully on their standing. Without the presence of trees, we cannot tell our story. There's no Jesus without a tree. Without trees, we cannot stay standing either. However, if we change our perception about the importance and the fundamental presence of trees, we might start to tell our stories differently. So that happens to me. One day I met Wonder. If you want to pass it around. Wonder. Wonder is a tree next to the place my family lives. Let's pass it around. In a small town called Enola, central Pennsylvania. Wonder is next to this beautiful shallow river called Conneaut River, one of the 100 tributaries of the Susquehanna River. Do you know that the Susquehanna River is the oldest river on earth? 300 million years. The river shaped all of the mountains. It was a weekday like any other one when I met Wonder walking with my family, a northern red oak tree. I was walking and never knew anything about oaks. But after Wonder, I was so much in awe that I started searching for it. So I know now that they love the water and the sun. The roots usually go out of the ground. She feeds so many other beings, squirrels, raccoons, blue jays, wild turkeys, deers, and its branches and trunks offer nesting places for mammals. She gives away throughout her life 100,000 acorns. Native Americans have used it for bleeding, swelling, and dysentery. Wonder is an oak tree, just my last name, Oaks. We are both different kinds of oaks. We became friends, but now Wonder is a portal for me to see something else. I want to invite you during Lent to find a tree. Make friends with a tree. Perhaps in your own house, in your own path to go to work. Introduce each other. Get to know each other. Get to know them. As a city boy, I still struggle with the forest. To go inside, woo! My family knows this well. Put me anywhere around New York and it's so good. Put me a quarter of a mile into a forest, I panic. So I'm trying to tell you how I'm trying to get connected with the tree. And to deep. That's when I come to Jesus' text for today. Take up your cross and follow me. Now I cannot help but realize that this call is not a symbolic one, but rather a call to pay attention, protect, heal, and care for the very trees next to my house, the trees of the forest near where I live, and the trees of the Amazon forest. Because to care for the trees is to care for the people. To care for the people is care for other beings. To care for other beings is to care for entire humanity. Davi Copenau, indigenous shaman from the Amazon forest, helps us here. He has a new commandment to us. He says, love the forest. Love the forest how you love your family. But to love the forest, we start to pay attention to the trees. Much to get closer. Listen. Pay attention. Know how they live. Become responsible. Wonder teaches me about so many things, about worms, birds, squirrels, spiders, ants, possums, and so on. With her, I learned how to take up the cross and follow the spirit of life. To take up the cross is to join the struggle to save the Amazon and any other forest who are still standing. Take up the cross is to stop the Calvaries of injustices with the crucifixion of the poor. To take up the cross is to stop any forms of lynching in our world today, like our prisons. Finally, to take up the cross is to go back to your tree time and again and listen. So during Lent, go find a tree. And by caring for the tree, you might learn about Jesus better. You might learn about the lynching tree better. And you might learn about Amazon. And then we will be like the psalmist who said, they are like trees, planted by streams of water, which yield their fruits in its season, and their leaves do not wither. And all they do, they prosper. So if we are like trees, we learn to adapt, because they help us adapt. Perhaps we start in a cradle and we finish with the can. Those are trees helping us to live from the beginning to the very end. If we are like trees, we'll care for rivers about us. If you are like trees, we'll care for the birds around us. If you care for trees, you're going to turn crosses into cradles. No prisons, but shelters. If we are like trees, we are not going to be like lynching, but we work for healing. Friends, we need to reforest our minds, reforest our spirituality, reforest our thinking. Let churches be forests. Let Riverside Church be a beautiful forest in New York City. So when somebody says, what are the two forests in New York City? Well, you have Central Park, but the real forest in the city is right there up north in the Riverside, because they are planted like trees, and they are like trees, and they know what it is to take care of life. Let us send each other our roots. Anywhere you go, spread your roots to somebody. The same way that my parents and my in-laws blessed and are roots for me and my wife. We are roots for our kids, and we are roots for each other. We have to bear fruits for each other. We have to give nest place for each other. We have to care for the environment of every one of us. So let's be trees, my friends. We are planted in trees like in the house of God. And if we are like trees, we shall bear colored fruits of love, fresh fruits of peace, and powerful piece of kindness to the world. Oh, my friends, let us be free trees. Let us be trees. Amen. Wow.